Welcome, Libra. It's your Gemini New Moon 1 month forecast for the ascendant, the Sun, or the Moon across the 14th, 15th of June, depending on location. The New Moon in Gemini at 24 degrees and 2 minutes is forged. We can talk about Gemini New Moons from a general viewpoint, but each lunation is completely unique. On the screen is this one, but from a Libran perspective. I'm going to unpack this for you at the end of the forecast. You have a clear picture of what's upcoming over the next 4 weeks in terms of your energy, work, relationships, and finances. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now to help it to continue to thrive. But please also click or tap the bell notification symbol. Gemini is the third zodiac sign, and it's very much about how we connect. Its ruler, Mercury, is the messenger, the winged messenger, the intermediary between the gods above and us mere mortals on planet Earth. But like your zodiac sign, being an air sign, that communication is at the heart of its energy. But what we've got this year for the first time in about 77 years is that Uranus, the planet of freedom, is back in the sign of Gemini as we have the new moon. So that brings an extra spicy ingredient. The other thing to say is the moon in Gemini is known as being in Peregrine. Doesn't quite know what to do with itself. The moon, of course, is the ruler of the sign of Cancer, very much more to do with the emotional dimension. And the combination of the sun and the moon, the king and the queen of the sky in a new moon, is when they're collaborating. So their energies are balanced. So the sun very much about the core vitality, the moon very much more about the more receptive, nurturing dimension. But in Gemini for you, that's the ninth house. So the ninth house can be about exploration. It can be about travel. It can be about independence, freedom. It can be about holidaying. It could be about higher education. It may be about trading internationally. It can be about things like documentation around moving through different countries and borders. It can be about import and export. So that ninth house energy is very fresh. But the combination of the sun and the moon this year is in the third and final decan of the sign of Gemini, pardon me, which is sub-ruled by the steady eddy of the zodiac Saturn and the progressive vibe of Uranus. So this is a particularly Uranian event. But it's not just because Uranus is back in the sign of Gemini that makes this so intriguing. Because if we look at the position of the nodal axis, the South Node in Virgo since January 2025, and the North Node in the sign of Pisces, they're very much to do with your physical dimension and your emotional. And the position of Uranus in a T-square with them is potentially in that more mental energy of Gemini to do with escape or freedom from something that's not quite working. And that could be to do with daily routines. It could be a psychological situation that's felt rather entrapping. But one of the ways that we can use that Uranian vibe is through knowledge, because that's really Gemini is very much about curiosity, and of course, it is about media, it's about technology, it can be about publishing through the ninth house, but most of all, it can be about travel. But we can travel through the comfort of our homes using our minds, or we can in a physical context. So I think Uranus is quite provocative on this event, suggesting that if there is something that you feel very sort of locked in by, you may be in the mood to rebel. But then there may be an opportunity with Uranus's link to Venus, your ruler, to connect to new and exciting people that really can bring an extra spark. You also have Mercury, the ruler of the sign of Gemini, challenged by Saturn in the part of your chart very much to do with relationships. But Mercury's in a very elevated position. It's not at its best in Cancer. It's now in its pre-retrograde shadow. And also, it may mean that if you're a bit bored with what you do with your work because of Mercury and Jupiter in that visible 10th house, and you're wanting to retrain or perhaps be more flexible, work from home, have some kind of greater autonomy. It may be that you have a conversation over the next few weeks where someone you need to work with could be a bit resistant to your need to do more of your own thing. But you know, we also have some very positive energy coming from that 10th house. If you work in an environment which is more fluid, very Gemini, it's very agile, flexing, and you are very entrepreneurial, the link between Jupiter and Mars, the sextile, but also the semi-sextile between them to this lunation is very strong indeed. So if you are someone who's very much an entrepreneur, you have your own business, or you work in a role which you have a lot of scope to express yourself and go with things very in a very fluid and quick way, very Gemini way, wow, this can be really exciting. We also have, just to say, that Venus, your ruler, is in a magical link with Neptune. That's particularly intriguing as far as the potential for a close relationship. And with Venus linking back to Uranus too, the people you encounter over the next few weeks, if it is new friends or it is someone as an individual that you're drawn to, it may have some kind of intuitive connection that is very hard to ignore. One other thing, Pluto is also feeding into Neptune, Uranus, and more broadly, Venus too. I'm going to summarize those four areas for you, Libra, of energy, work, relationships, and finances. But just before I do, I've slashed the price of my personal horoscope reports. For many years, it was buy two, get 30% off. I realized that people are feeling the cost of living increases. So now it's buy one, get three, three for the price of one. The one you pay for is your life roadmap report, which helps us to understand the patterns that play out in our lives, get a more intimate understanding of that energy and work with it in a more aware way, which helps to make better future decisions. Three, your 12 months transit forecast, totally unique to you, but also your draconic soul karmic analysis, which helps us to look at astrology, life, and ourselves in a very different and profound way. Please see below for more. If you've yet to watch your Jupiter No More Blocks deep dive video, please check that out. If you've yet to watch your Chiron 50-year return video, that's on the screen. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, it'd be an absolute pleasure. I work with people the world over. Please see my testimonials below. If you've yet to take advantage of my free daily horoscope, fire to your device each morning for your early day celestial pit stop, you can do so below too. So to summarize, energy. I feel that Uranus in that T-square with the nodal axis could be quite disruptive. So if you're in a role at the moment that feels quite oppressing, you don't seem to get enough time to rest physically or to manage your own domestic responsibilities, or you feel drained in a more emotional or psychological way, I feel Uranus is being very provocative and asking you to think about the concept of breaking free, even if there are some benefits to what you're doing at the present time. But if you do feel locked into a situation that's very mentally overwhelming, Gemini, lots of demands, very busy, and you're not getting enough time to breathe, do think about liberation. I think in terms of your professional situation, that clash between Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, and Saturn is something to be mindful of. If you work with someone who has a very set way of doing things and is very prescriptive, you know, the ultimate micromanager, that really could be very frustrating over the next few weeks. If you're fortunate enough to work for yourself or with people who understand that we're living in a very fluid way, and the more we can support each other to get moments of individual space, that actually produces extra dedication, performance, and productivity. And that's where Jupiter and Mars really push you to seize the moment. And a big breakthrough could be possible. And it may be a job that is to do with technology, travel, or has an international or educational flavor. When it comes to your financial situation, Venus, the planet of of finance has moved into a very proud part of your chart, one which could give you an appreciation of some luxuries and could also tempt you to splash out, because it's a rare Libra that doesn't have quite the appreciation of some classy items. But if you're thinking in a more acquisitional way around using your resources, I think Mars coming into a fabulous link with Jupiter on the 28th of June, but building up from now suggests if you've been working towards something for a very long time, you could really get a big uplift in terms of your finances by the end of the month. Now, in terms of a relationship, when we have Venus and Uranus in any kind of connection, it's pushing us to try to reinvigorate, but also perhaps freshen things up, not be quite so predictable. So even if you're in a settled relationship, do try to do something with your partner that is a bit more flamboyant. Venus in Leo likes a little bit of style and spoiling. However, if you're in a relationship that's perhaps not going so well, and you do feel that maybe you get a lot of sort of critique over how you are, there is a part of you that may want to liberate yourself from that, to be honest. Uranus in the ninth house is very, very powerful. However, if you are that proverbial footloose and fancy free person, if you're traveling anywhere or you're on a holiday or vacation, there could be a sibling connection that you're going to enjoy. Or if you're not, it may be that you're going to connect with someone who comes from a completely different background to you. Do be open-minded about that. It's been a pleasure being with you, Libra. All the best, and look forward to seeing you again soon.